First blood. The morning coffee had just started brewing in Seattle when the sky split open. Not with thunder or lightning, but with silence so complete it made birds drop from the air. Maya Chen watched her mug shatter on the kitchen floor as gravity itself seemed to hiccup. Outside her apartment window, the Space Needle twisted like taffy before snapping back into place. Then came the ships. They emerged from tears and reality, massive crystalline structures that made Earth's greatest achievements look like children's toys. The Tyros Empire had arrived, and they hadn't come to talk. Beijing fell first, a beam of pure energy carved through the city center, turning concrete and steel into glass. Moscow followed 12 minutes later. By the time the sun reached New York, half of Earth's major cities were smoking craters. Maya grabbed her emergency backpack and ran. She wasn't military, wasn't special forces. She was a software engineer who spent her weekends rock climbing and her evenings coding pet projects. But something in her DNA, something older than civilization, told her to survive. In the streets below, chaos reigned. Cars abandoned mid-intersection, people running without direction, a child crying for parents who would never answer. Maya scooped up the boy without thinking, dodging falling debris as another Tyros ship passed overhead. The ships were beautiful in their horror. Translucent hulls revealed pulsing networks of light, like neural pathways in a giant brain. They moved without sound, without exhaust, defying every law of physics humanity understood. 3 blocks away, Marcus Rodriguez watched his construction site become a grave. The beam had caught his crew during lunch break. 20 good people, gone in an instant. The former Marine stood among the rubble, fists clenched, jaw tight. He'd left one war behind only to find another at his doorstep. A Tyros ground unit materialized nearby. 7 feet tall, wrapped in living armor that shifted like liquid mercury. Its face was a smooth oval with 3 eyes arranged in a triangle. It raised what might have been a weapon. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed a steel rebar from the debris and charged. The alien fired, but Marcus had already rolled aside, combat instincts taking over. The rebar found a gap in the armor, and purple blood sprayed across the concrete. The alien screamed, a sound like breaking glass, and fell. Marcus stared at the corpse, then at the weapon it had dropped. He picked it up, feeling it pulse against his palm like a heartbeat. "They bleed," he whispered. "They can die." Across the Atlantic, Dr. James Wright huddled in his laboratory at Cambridge as the world ended outside. The theoretical physicist had spent his life studying quantum mechanics, searching for answers to the universe's greatest mysteries. Now those mysteries were bombing his planet. His equipment detected something fascinating. The Tyros ships weren't just traveling through space. They were folding it, creating shortcuts through dimensions humanity had only theorized about. Their technology was centuries ahead, but it followed rules. Rules that could be understood. Rules that could be broken. James began working feverishly, ignoring the sirens, ignoring the screams. If he could understand their technology, perhaps he could find a weakness. The attacks continued for 7 days. Systematic. Calculated. The Tyros weren't trying to conquer Earth. They were sterilizing it. Their weapons didn't just destroy buildings. They eliminated organic matter at the molecular level. Forests turned to ash. Oceans boiled. The planet itself was being reformatted. On the 8th day, the attacks stopped. A message appeared on every surviving screen, transmitted on every frequency. The image showed a Tyros commander, taller than the ground troops, with armor that seemed to be made of starlight itself. When it spoke, the words bypassed ears and appeared directly in human minds. Species designated human. Your resistance has been noted. Your world has been selected for conversion. You have proven interesting. We offer a single opportunity. Submit to integration into the Tyros collective. Your consciousness will be preserved. Your species will serve a greater purpose. Refuse, and your extinction will be complete. You have one rotation of your planet to decide. The message ended. Silence fell across the wounded Earth. In an abandoned subway tunnel beneath Chicago, Maya had found other survivors. The child she'd saved, Tommy, clung to her side. Around them gathered a mix of humanity. Soldiers without armies, doctors without hospitals, engineers without cities to build. They'd all seen the message. They'd all felt the weight of the choice. Integration, spat Maria Santos, a former cop whose precinct had vanished in the first wave. Fancy word for slavery. But we'd survive, argued Dr. Kevin Park, cradling a broken arm. The species would continue. As what? Maya stood, Tommy's hand in hers. As pets, as tools. That's not survival. That's surrender. Marcus arrived at the tunnel entrance, alien weapon slung over his shoulder. Behind him came others, survivors he gathered from the ruins. Found more fighters, he announced. And weapons. The aliens dropped them when they died. You killed more? Maria asked, hand moving to her service pistol. 3, Marcus confirmed. They're tough, but not invincible. And their tech. He held up a device that looked like a metallic spider. This thing creates shields. Personal force fields. I've seen it stop their own weapons. Hope flickered in the tunnel. Real hope, not just the desperate kind that keeps people breathing. Dr. Wright's voice crackled through a ham radio someone had salvaged. This is Cambridge Station to any survivors. I've made a discovery. The Tyros use quantum entanglement for their communications. Every ship, every soldier is connected to a central network. If we can access it. The transmission cut off. Maya looked around the tunnel at the faces of humanity's remnants. Tired faces, scared faces, but not defeated faces. One day, she said, they gave us one day to decide. I say we use it. To do what? Dr. Park asked. Maya smiled, a fierce expression that would have surprised her old coworkers. To show them what humans do when backed into a corner. The group began to organize. Messages went out on every surviving channel. Coordinates were shared, resources pooled. In bunkers and basements, in mountain caves and desert hideouts, humanity's scattered remnants began to connect. The Tyros had made 2 critical errors. First, they'd assumed human nature was uniform, that fear would drive the species to universal submission. Second, they'd left their technology behind with their dead. As night fell on the 8th day, workshops sprang up in hidden places. Human engineers reverse-engineered alien devices. Programmers like Maya worked to crack Tyros codes. Soldiers like Marcus trained civilians in guerrilla tactics. In his underground lab, Dr. Wright made another breakthrough. The Tyros network wasn't just for communication. It was their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. Every unit was connected, sharing processing power, sharing sensory data. Cut that connection, and individual units would be isolated, vulnerable. But accessing the network would require getting close to a Tyros command node, dangerously close. As the hours ticked by, a plan took shape. Not a plan for submission or negotiation, but for something the Tyros hadn't calculated into their models of lesser species. Revenge. The sun rose on the 9th day. Earth's rotation was complete. The Tyros deadline had arrived. Across the planet, Tyros forces prepared to receive humanity's answer. Their models predicted an 87% probability of submission. No species had ever refused integration when faced with complete annihilation. But their models hadn't accounted for Maya Chen coding through the night, tears streaming down her face as she thought of her vaporized family. They hadn't calculated Marcus Rodriguez training a civilian militia with stolen alien weapons, turning accountants and teachers into warriors. They hadn't predicted Dr. Wright's discovery of the quantum frequencies that bound the Tyros together. Most of all, they hadn't understood that humans were different. Where other species saw futility, humans saw opportunity. Where others calculated odds, humans rolled dice. As the deadline moment arrived, humanity's answer came not in words, but in actions. The first coordinated strike hit Tyro's ground forces in what remained of London. Improvised weapons met alien shields. Some humans fell, but others pressed forward. Each small victory provided more alien tech, more understanding. In orbit, the Tyros commander watched the tactical displays with something approaching confusion. The humans weren't surrendering. They weren't even negotiating. They were attacking. Impossible, the commander transmitted to the fleet. Their numbers are too few. Their technology too primitive. But the attacks continued, not just in London, but in Paris ruins, in Tokyo's ashes, in the scorched plains where Delhi once stood. Humanity had spent its day not cowering, but preparing. The war for Earth's survival had begun, and somewhere in the network that connected every Tyros unit, a virus written by a grieving software engineer began to spread. Maya's code, carried by Dr. Wright's quantum transmissions, infiltrated the alien systems one node at a time. The Tyros had attacked Earth first. They'd offered humanity a final warning. They were about to learn why that was their last mistake. The counterstrike. The virus Maya had coded spread through the Tyros network like wildfire through digital veins. Each infected node experienced a microsecond of confusion before the next calculation cycle, barely noticeable to individual units, but creating a cascading effect across their collective consciousness. Marcus Rodriguez led the first major offensive from the ruins of Detroit. His ragtag army of survivors had spent the night learning to use Tyros weapons, their human adaptability turning alien technology into instruments of liberation. The plasma rifles felt wrong in human hands. Too light, too smooth, but they worked. Remember, Marcus told his troops as dawn broke over the devastated city, they're connected. Hit one, you're hitting them all. Make it count. The Tyros patrol appeared at 600, 5 units moving in perfect synchronization through the rubble. They expected scattered resistance at most. They got coordinated warfare. Crossfire erupted from 3 positions. Tyros shields flared, but the humans had learned. Concentrated fire from multiple angles overwhelmed the defensive systems. 2 aliens fell before the others could adapt. But adaptation was what the Tyros did best. The remaining 3 units shifted tactics instantly, their armor morphing to deflect the specific frequency of captured weapons. They returned fire with precision that should have been lethal. Should have been. Maya's virus had done its work. The Tyros' targeting systems were off by millimeters, insignificant in their calculations, but enough for humans to dodge, to survive, to counterattack. Maria Santos flanked the aliens, using the police tactics that had kept her alive on Chicago's streets. She'd strapped Tyros' shield generators to riot gear, creating a hybrid protection system that confused enemy targeting further. Her shotgun, modified with alien power cells, punched through weakened shields. The patrol fell. 5 more Tyros weapons joined humanity's growing arsenal. In Cambridge, Dr. Wright monitored the quantum frequencies, watching the virus spread. The Tyros network was vast, spanning not just Earth but reaching into space, connecting to their fleet, their homeworld, their entire civilization. "My God," he whispered, realizing the scope of what Maya had created. It's not just disrupting them, it's learning from them. The virus was evolving, adapting to Tyros' countermeasures faster than they could implement them. Each attempt to purge it only made it stronger, more integrated into their systems. But the Tyros weren't passive victims. Their commander, stationed aboard the flagship Dominion's Edge, recognized the threat. Orders flowed through the network. Increase ground forces. Accelerate the cleansing protocol. Eliminate human resistance before the infection could spread further. Drop pods fell from orbit like metallic rain. Each one carried a squad of Tyros warriors, their armor upgraded, their weapons calibrated specifically for human targets. They landed in major resistance centers, the Chicago tunnels, the London Underground, the mountain bunkers of Colorado. The battle for Chicago was fierce. Maya had turned the abandoned subway into a digital fortress, her computers hardwired into captured Tyros tech. She felt the commander's presence in the network, a cold intelligence probing for the virus's source. "You want to play?" she muttered, fingers flying across keyboards. "Let's play." She opened a channel directly into the command structure, something that should have been impossible for human technology. But Maya wasn't using human technology anymore. She was using their own systems against them, turned inside out by human creativity and desperation. The Tyros commander found itself in an unprecedented situation, a dialogue with prey. "You delay the inevitable," the commander transmitted. "Your species will fall. Your resistance only increases your suffering." Maya laughed, actually laughed, as bombs fell overhead and the tunnel shook. "You really don't get it, do you? Suffering is what we do best. It's what makes us stronger." She triggered the second phase of her virus. Across the planet, Tyro's units suddenly lost coordination. Not completely. They were too advanced for total system failure, but enough. Their hive mind fractured into individual nodes, each unit forced to process information independently. For a species that had operated as a collective for millennia, it was like suddenly going blind and deaf. Human forces pressed the advantage. In Moscow's ruins, a group of Russian hackers used the disruption to commandeer a Tyros orbital cannon, turning it against incoming drop pods. In the Amazon, indigenous tribes who had survived the initial attacks used alien weapons alongside traditional hunting techniques, disappearing into the jungle after each strike. But the real battle was happening in orbit. Dr. Wright's calculations had revealed the location of the Tyros command ship. It sat at the edge of Earth's gravity well, a crystalline cathedral of impossible geometry, protected by shields that could shrug off nuclear weapons. Marcus Rodriguez had a different idea. "We don't need to destroy it," he explained to the assembled resistance leaders via encrypted channels. "We need to board it." The plan was insane. Use captured Tyros drop pods to reach the command ship, fight through its defenses, plant Maya's virus directly into the core systems. It was suicide, and everyone knew it. Volunteers stepped forward anyway. Hundreds of them. Humans who had lost everything but refused to lose hope. Maya would lead the digital assault. Marcus would lead the physical one. Dr. Wright would coordinate from Earth, using quantum entanglement to maintain communication, even through Tyros jamming. They launched at midnight, Earth time. 27 drop pods racing toward the command ship, each one carrying humanity's finest warriors and most desperate hope. The Tyros detected them immediately. Point defense systems activated, filling space with energy beams and plasma fire. Pods exploded, human lives winking out like candles. But some got through. 7 pods, including Maya and Marcus's, punched through the shields using stolen frequencies and crashed into the command ship's hull. The interior was a nightmare of organic technology. Walls that breathed, floors that adjusted to footsteps, air that tasted like copper and ozone. Maya's virus had disrupted internal defenses, but Tyros warriors still responded to the breach. The fighting was brutal, close-quarters combat, where human ferocity met alien precision. Marcus led from the front, his construction workers' strength augmented by combat experience. They pushed deeper into the ship, following Maya's directions toward the core. Maya herself was in a different kind of battle. Jacked directly into the ship's nervous system through a Tyros interface, she experienced the network as a vast digital ocean. The commander's presence was everywhere, trying to crush her consciousness like a bug. But humans were stubborn bugs. She felt Tommy in her mind, the boy she'd saved in Seattle, now safe in the Chicago tunnels. She thought of her parents, her sister, her world, all gone because the Tyros had decided humanity was expendable. That anger became code. That grief became algorithms. She rewrote the fundamental protocols of the Tyros network, not to destroy it, but to change its very nature. "What are you doing?" the commander demanded, its mental voice tinged with something like fear. "Teaching you," Maya replied, her consciousness spreading through the network like roots through soil. "Teaching you what it means to be alone." The virus reached its final stage. Every Tyros unit in the fleet, on the ground, across their entire civilization, suddenly experienced something they'd never known: individuality. The collective consciousness shattered into billions of separate minds, each one forced to process the universe independently. For humans, it was natural. For the Tyros, it was madness. Their fleet fell into chaos. Ships collided as coordination failed. Ground units froze, overwhelmed by sensory input they'd always shared but now faced alone. The great Tyros Empire, built on perfect unity, crumbled in moments. The commander's last message to Maya was not a threat or a plea, but a question. How do you live like this? Maya smiled as she felt her consciousness fading, the strain of the interface too much for her human brain. One day at a time. Marcus found her at the core terminal, blood trickling from her nose, her hand still on the Tyros interface. She was breathing, barely. Around them, the ship was dying, its systems failing as individual components could no longer coordinate. "Time to go," he said, lifting her gently. They made it to the escape pods as the command ship began to break apart. The return to Earth was a blur of acceleration and fire, but human hands were waiting to catch them when they landed. The war was over, not with humanity's extinction or submission, but with the Tyros' transformation. Their ships retreated, not in defeat but in confusion, each crew now a collection of individuals rather than a collective. Some Tyros remained on Earth, unable to reconnect with their fleet. They wandered, lost, until humans, because humans were nothing if not adaptable, began to help them. Former enemies became refugees, learning to exist as individuals in a universe suddenly vast and lonely. Months later, as Earth began to rebuild, signals came from space. Tyros voices, speaking not as a collective, but as individuals. Some asked for help. Others offered trade. A few even expressed something like gratitude. The empire that had attacked Earth first, that had offered humanity a final warning, had instead received a lesson in what it meant to be human. Not in humanity's weapons or tactics, but in its gift for connection without loss of self. Maya recovered, her mind forever changed by contact with the alien network. She helped establish communication protocols with the scattered Tyros, building bridges between species that had met in violence, but might continue in understanding. Marcus returned to construction, but now he built defenses as well as homes. Earth would never be caught unprepared again. Dr. Wright won the Nobel Prize for his work on quantum consciousness, his research helping both humans and Tyros understand the nature of individual thought. And in the night sky, where Tyros ships had once brought death, new stars appeared. Ships of trade, of exploration, of former enemies learning to be neighbors. The Tyros had struck first. They had offered humanity extinction or slavery. Instead, they received the most human gift of all, the chance to choose their own fate. Earth still bore the scars of the invasion. Cities remained in ruins. Millions were gone forever. But humanity had survived, and in surviving, had changed the galaxy itself. The last transmission from the former Tyros commander, now calling itself by an individual name, Zix, was simple. "Thank you for the warning." Humanity's answer was equally simple. "You're welcome. Don't make us teach you again." The stars waited, full of possibilities, and for the first time in their history, the Tyros faced them not as a collective, but as individuals. Just like humans always had. The universe would never be the same.